Ah, I'm dreading this because of the fucking...
One of these 10 strategies...
Jesus Christ, guys. I don't know if I can do this. Okay, I gotta figure something out. I don't have any other... Fuck. Because I can't even hear what he's saying. I just hear... This is
funny. I thought you liked that loud.
I'm pretty sure my speakers in my headset blew out. So like my entire sound is like so I can't even tell what the hell he's saying when he's talking. And if I have like the sound on, then the mic's gonna pick it up and it's gonna have an echo. So at this point, like, I don't know what to do. Let's just try it. Let's go through it. Let's see if I can just fucking suffer through it.
Is right for your book. At least one, right? And if your opening isn't using
Right
one of these 10 strategies, you might want to think about changing it. Let's get started right away with the first strategy for your opening paragraph.
I'm an unappreciated comedic genius. There you go, Levi. Best you can do is take the headset out while it's going, turn on captions, and watch it that way. That is a good idea. I could just turn captions on.
Start with character change.
Start with character change. It's because it's fine on our end? Yeah, that would be a good idea if you could read. True, Levi. True. Oh, God. Okay, start with character change.
So there's a widespread belief among writers out there that you have to start with introducing the character. Let us get to know them a little bit. And folks, that is a fiction. You don't have to do it. You really don't. In fact, the very first paragraph of your book can show your character already in the process of changing from who they were to who they will be. For an example of this, let's look at Han Kang's The Vegetarian. In the very first sentence of that book, it starts with, "Before my wife turned vegetarian, I'd always thought of her as being completely unremarkable." So we start by learning who the character was and how they are in the process of change. Now, opening like this will help you avoid a really common mistake that a lot of writers make, which is writing a static character. Here, the character is kinetic and changing from the very first line. I also think this opening is great because it's characterizing the speaker as well. If she's so unremarkable, then why did you marry her? And why are you being so judgmental about her right now? And by the way, if you need more help writing your book, I have a Write Your Best Novel course, which has
giving me a
36 videos in it to help you with the beginning, middle, and end of your book. And there are a ton of great testimonials for this course, including this one, which says, "I take a lot of writing courses, which tend to repeat the same things, yet so much of the advice in this course was completely new and valuable." Anyway, check that out. I'll put the link in the description.
This is not the same, guys. This is not the same. Okay, start with character change. So let's look at what we do. We're talking the first paragraph here. Well, I mean, what about the sentence of... Play it out on your monitor then and swapped push to talk on your mic in OBS. Then I'm just going to be talking without the mic on pieces. It's going to be bad. I'm just going to... Hold on a second. I'm going to see if one of these... fucked with the mic. There we go. Okay. Okay.
Paragraph is to start with a...
I was hoping it would just fix itself. Because this happened last time and somehow we fixed it. It was like something to do with like how this was angled.
Relationship. It's almost always a good idea to start with a relationship between two people. Why? Because when you have two people, there's all this possibility for conflict and for tension, and we're wondering about...
Okay, let's go back to start with character change. Furball flashback, what's up? My headphones have exploded. And apparently they burst at some point in time, so I need new headphones. And it's killing me because all I hear is static. Oh hey, a relationship is how I've been reworking my story to start with. I'm just like, how do you put this all into 5 sentences? Oh shit, guys. Start with character change. Okay, so the first sentence is, Husai used to be an adventurer. Now he writes paperwork. So that's Husai's change. I think they expect you to pick a strategy. I know, but I'm not like that, Levi. So if we did start with character change, it would be Husai used to be an adventurer and he misses the old fun times.
To repeat the same things, yet so much of the advice in this course was completely new and valuable. Anyway, check that out. I'll put the link in the description. The second strategy for your opening paragraph is to
start with a relationship. Well, I mean, we kind of do that in the fact of we're starting with the relationship between Torg and the Monarch, because Torg dies, but we still don't know if we want to do that as the first paragraph, right?
To start with a relationship. It's almost always a good idea to start with a relationship between two people. Why? Because when you have two people, there's all this possibility for conflict and for tension, and we're wondering about what their relationship is like and how it's going to change. For an example of this, let's look at Susan Chess' book, Trust Exercise. So here we have two 15-year-olds, David and Sarah, and they are in a romantic relationship. This is a great way to start your book because now the reader's wondering what's going to happen with this couple. Are they going to get more serious? Are they going to break up? Is somebody going to cheat on the other one? But what else is good about this opening paragraph is it establishes a problem right away. They don't have a car, right? They don't have transportation. And so we're wondering, okay, what are they going to do to solve this problem? A third thing that's good about this opening paragraph is that we have a time frame. It is in a summer. So that establishes a kind of ticking clock for the narrative. And a fourth thing that's great about this opening paragraph is that it starts with a 3-word sentence. Look, short sentences are fantastic to start your book with. It's a simple way to start and readers can understand it really easily. Now this fifth point I have about this paragraph is an advanced one. It is how to stitch a paragraph together. And here Susan Che does it through repetition. She repeats numbers 16, 16, and 8. And then she repeats intuitive 3 times in the last few sentences. All this repetition ties the paragraph together and makes it easy for the reader to read. The third way you can write the first paragraph of your novel is to start in the middle of the action. Let's check out this example from Hilary Mantel.
That's where sometimes I wonder if starting at the beginning of the fight of the Emerald Weapon and leaving all the build-up out and just having the beginning, the doors opening and the Emerald Weapon coming online and then just like rushing into doing the fight. Like there's so many different ways of imagine starting it, but I just feel that starting with like the mundane of Husai's life to show that everything's about to hit the fucking fan is the best way to start.
Historical novel Wolf Hall. Her very first line is actually dialogue. So now get up. Now you might have heard the old advice to never start a book or a chapter with dialogue.
Why not?
And I have to say,
one day you need to write a synopsis for every act so I can give you an honest interpretation of how to change it or not. It's hot 10 years ago. This would have been summer weather, but today it was the winter equinox. Or my opinion on it, at least. I guess so, Beezus. Because Act 1 is the build-up to Garuda, Act 2 is the build-up to Fafnir, and Act 3 is the build-up to the Monarch. I love it, Sean. That is a hell of an intro. It's hard to really say anything because I have no idea about all the things you're referencing most times. That's true, Beezus, because you guys have like a fractured image of what, you know, the entirety of it is.
Seen it in action too many times to actually think that's a good rule. I understand the purpose behind the rule. It's because it is a little bit disorienting for the reader to come in and not know who is speaking and not be able to see the scene or anything. So there are lots of bad ways to do it, but you can do it well, and I think this is an example of how. Now, this is in the middle of a father beating his son. Now, she could have started the scene with the father stalking towards him. She could have started it with the father hitting him, but instead, she chose to start with what the father says. And then the next paragraph makes it clear that the son's on the ground after being hit. So why does this work so well? Well, one, there is a mystery. You don't know who the speaker is, but then you learn in the next paragraph that it's the father. Two, it's a really good decision to start right away with a fight. This gets the book moving.
Maybe building a baseline database for it would be okay. Label terminology and events with brief descriptions. That is something I should do, Beezus. The reference material are varied too, so any descriptions will be unique to a specific origin game. Even the Chocobo has many variations sometimes in a single game. It's true. There's a lot.
Right away. There's no preamble. You're just sort of catapulted into the action. Three, Mantell does a wonderful job upping the stakes with that last sentence. It's life and death. One good blow in this position could kill him. And four, she does a great job with upping the tension in this first section. He is looking toward the gate, hoping someone's going to arrive. So of course the reader's thinking like, is someone going to arrive to help him? They want to keep reading to see if help will arrive. A fourth incredible strategy to write the first paragraph of your book is to start with your book's essence. So when book beginnings fail, it's often because the author wanted to start...
Can you actually publish a book for profit if it has the name Chocobo? It's practically speaking a cross between a yellow chicken and an ostrich. Pretty much. I don't know, Beezus. You would probably be sued by Square Enix.
With a little bit of introduction. They want a little preamble. They want a little...
Well, we could find out. Let's ask Rock. Titling a book titled Chocobo could expose you to legal risks from Square Enix, the company that owns the Chocobo trademark and associated intellectual property. Here's a breakdown of the key considerations. So yeah, pretty much. Yes, they're fucking copyrighted. That's why I have to change the name if I can't get it to be officially Final Fantasy. But remember, the end goal, guys, is to get Square Enix to say, we want this to be official lore, like the first ever Final Fantasy book, right? Or we could abolish copyright, that'd work. That was the biggest problem I had, because all the backroom stuff that isn't directly tied to the base description requires me to release my story as Creative Commons, so I just have to change every name. Yeah, it's annoying, but that's just the way that it is, right? It's understandable.
Foreplay. But a lot of the time, not all the time, a lot of the time that is a mistake, and you need to start closer to the action. Look at
Death
the
of
book
Hope
Under the Skin by Michelle Faber. So what is this book about? This is a book about a woman picking up hitchhikers to do unspeakable things to them. Okay, so what does the first paragraph look like? You think it might be like setting the scene, letting us get to know the environment or the setting or the character? No.
You can still sell something that has Creative Commons license, can't you? I think but you have to give royalties, right? Don't you? Isn't there like a percentage? Okay, the publishers are just shy with them. Copyright has its issues, but it can be limited to X years over, after which it becomes public domain no matter how much money is thrown at the issue. Star Trek needs to be public domain. Well, that's just what happened with Mickey Mouse, like, last year with Disney, right? Because it's the 50th anniversary, and after 50 years, it's now public domain. No, I just want to be traditionally published. Makes sense, Beezus. I'd like that to be the same for my book, so I'd have to change everything that was inherently Final Fantasy, even if it's fully inspired, and you know that it's a chocobo, you can't call it a chocobo. Like, the secrets in Monster Hunter Wilds are basically chocobos, right? But, you know, it's a bird fucking mount. That was specifically Steamboat Willie. Chalkarox is that's a good name. True, Sean.
It starts right away with a woman driving, trying to pick up hitchhikers to do unspeakable things to them. What I love about this strategy is...
Yeah, that's why I like to start with the essence of your book, the death of hope, and that's pretty much what we start with, right? We're like, oh shit, man. 100%.
You're really delivering on the promise of the book. Like, someone reads the back book cover, and then when they turn to that first page, I'm getting what I bought. Like, I'm...
Fucking ads. You know what's a good name too, Sean? Just enough there between the name and the basic form that people know it's a chocobo. I like the gerbil stacks, though. Murder mystery. Gotta start with the crime scene. True. Don't gotta, but I will. I mean, you could technically say that ours is like a murder mystery off the bat. We're trying to figure out who the fuck killed Torg, and we know that it's not Husai. No, you can start with a phone call. Mrs. Brady, we have some terrible news. Yes. We hope we can carry you through this hard time. If you ever need anything, just call us. You know, something like that. A lot of psych episodes start with some kind of hijinks. Detective Randall, homicide. Either starts with the crime scene or the main character looking over a pile of papers on his desk, going over the crime, being frustrated. Like the Jake Gyllenhaal of him, like, smashing everything off of his fucking desk and just being like, fuck!
Getting what I was promised. Now, this next strategy is a very smart one that you're going to want to use. It is number 5, elude.
How did this man get killed with a phone book? No, Beezus, you know what's a really good one? It's... it's an X-ray, and it shows the phone book inside of the guy's stomach. And the guy, like, folded up the phone book, stuck it in his mouth, and then, like, took, like, a baseball bat and, like, shoved it down his fucking throat. It's the way that you use the phone book, Levi. They're like, how the fuck did a phone book... It's yellow pages and not white pages, of course, yeah. They're like, how the fuck did a phone book wind up in this guy's fucking stomach? I have shoved deeper things down my throat. True, Fireblade, so have I! He was obviously a fucking noob and he just couldn't take it. But yeah, something like really fucked up like that. Allude to forthcoming action. Well, that's kind of what we do too with Torg's death in the Calm Pearl. We allude to the 100-year quest.
To forthcoming action. So let's say you have a beginning of a novel without a lot of action right away. You're sort of setting the scene and, there's nothing wrong with that. But the trouble is, how do you hook the reader right away and make sure they don't, go start playing video games or social media or something? Well, the secret is by promising them action very soon. Let's look at Claire Vaye Watkins' book, Gold Fame Citrus. So check out this first line. Punting the prairie dog into the library was a mistake.
The difficulty of solving the crime goes up when you have to mount a horse or a carriage rather than hopping into a patrol car.
That's such a good line for a number of reasons. We're like, why is it in the library? 2, a prairie dog? 3, it was a mistake. She regrets punting it. Now, as you can see at the end of this paragraph, and really over the next 2 pages, it's all about trying on dresses. Now, if she had started the book with trying on dresses, well, she might have lost, some of the audience. But instead, by promising, oh, I'm gonna punt a prairie dog, and then talking about trying on dresses, and then getting to the scene where the prairie dog is punted, she kept the reader on the line, the reader kept reading, and got to that intriguing, weird, pivotal scene that starts the novel. All it took was 2 sentences to hook us. 2 sentences to describe that prairie dog, and then 2 pages of dresses, and then delivers on the prairie dog promise.
What about changing the perspective of the beginning? But what if they mount a horse, but it's basically they have a phobia of being in a car, so it's a carpet pull when they get there and there's tons of squad cars with lights flashing? I like that, Sean, but I think you could go even harder with that. Spend one day just creating a dictionary for your book instead of writing short stories. But see, Beezus, I don't know, is that something you guys would want to see on stream, or is that something I should do off stream? Because, we're talking about it now, we could do it right now. It's just most of the time, I'm more interested in other things than writing a fucking dictionary. But and the fact that, the stream's for productivity, isn't it? Yeah, and look how far we've gotten in Chiral Clones. It's been a month and we're still not even halfway done writing it. I would, if you would be down for it, but if you don't want to. No, it's just something that I would think maybe that would be boring, but maybe I'm wrong. First, you need to identify those words as they appear in order in your book, so that when you go to the appendix later, it's in order. Yeah, that makes sense, Sean. But, okay, what about changing the perspective to... It's Husai watching the very end of the calm pearl. So it's the dragon's breath, Torg running away, Torg exiting the citadel, or the 100-year quest, the dungeon, and then being killed by, Husai. Or what Husai sees himself as. And then he's like, well, what the fuck? And it just leaves the reader hanging on the edge. Like, what the hell did he just watch? He just watched himself kill someone, but he's like, that wasn't me. And then it does the entire inauguration. And the entire time during the inauguration, Husai's, referencing and mentioning things about the past, about his previous people. So it's you're getting the introduction to these characters during the inauguration between Husai and Sid, in between learning everything else. So when you finally get to the 3rd chapter and Husai sits down with Sid and shows Sid the entire calm pearl, and then it goes through the battle and shows you everything that's happened, you already have a grasp of who the characters are, why they're important, and that just, hooks things in more, right? I feel like this is why I like talking about it, because I can see it from a different perspective, right? Of how can I do the same thing, but in a different way? And then that'll push chapter 4 to being Husai going to the underground, and he's looking at Sid I gotta find answers to this, so I'm going to talk to my ancestors. And then he goes into the roots and does the communion with Gaia. But I think, yeah, that's probably a better way to start it. Because it'll allude at what the hell is going to happen and something's fucked up. And it'll be Husai basically sitting in his own sweat being like, he watched the most terrifying thing ever fucking happen. And everyone's like, what the hell did he see? Like, what the fuck?
Very easy strategy to follow. If your first action is on page 3 or page 4 or page 5, allude to it in the very first sentence of your book. It will keep readers on the hook until they reach that first action. I am wary to give you this next piece of advice because honestly, it gets misused so often. But against my better judgment, here is number 6, start with a broad lens. This technique of opening your book is to start very philosophically or in a very abstract.
That's kind of like what I've, like the original beginning that I wanted to have was the prologue. And in the prologue was this broad abstract thing. In the year 596 of the Crystal Era, the crystalline tree scaled the atmosphere. The single continent of whatever the fuck it's called, Ixion, loomed below this monstrosity of a creation. The light of the lava of the fucking volcano that lights the trees, essentially, like, fire, in a way, describes, like, the Beastmen War, the unease and the tension, adventurers themselves, and it does, like, it's like the beginning landscape view in, like, a Final Fantasy game, where it's, like kind of going across the land, being like, these are the nations that were fighting with these nations, and then, and then the first chapter would be, like, the adventurer shit, but it was just kind of, the prologue would just kind of lead everything up to that. So it's like, I like the idea of start using this in the prologue, but not actually in the first scene.
Abstract manner. Start with a broad lens from far away, looking at, say, the town as a whole. And for an example of this, let's look at Anne Lamott, Imperfect Birds. Now, you might know Anne Lamott from her nonfiction book for writers, Bird by Bird. So funny, one of the best writing books ever. I actually had the pleasure of meeting her at a conference in Northern California, and I'm happy to report she is just as funny in person as she is on the page. She starts the very first paragraph of her novel by saying, there are so many evils that pull on our children, right? That's very broad, that's very societal, it's very abstract. We don't have a character yet, we have this big proclamation. And then she narrows it down a little bit and talks about the specific town of Lansdale. Teenagers die every year. We have halfway houses and jail. And then once a year, one kid jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge. So what can we learn from an opening like this? One is, even though it's in the abstract, we're still starting with a problem, right? This is obviously an issue, and there's tension and conflict with all these problems with the kids. Two, it's a great strategy to start really far off abstract statement, then narrow in on a town, and then the very next paragraph starts with a specific person and says that person's name. So now we're grounded in a particular character. But in general, if you want to pull off something like this, starting with some sort of broad proclamation or starting with a statistic that reflects somehow on your character, the journey of your character, that's a good idea. This next advice is an absolute humdinger. You're gonna love it. It is number 7. Start with a mystery. A general principle in writing the first paragraph of your book is that you want to give your readers
That's kind of what we're doing,
but keep them wondering about the why. That's the ideal way to do a mystery. So check out John le Carre's A Most Wanted Man. We obviously have the what in this very first paragraph. We have the Turkish heavyweight champion walking down the street with his mom, and we have a skinny boy in a coat following him. But we don't know the why, right? We're unsure why this kid is following him. And that's what makes the mystery, and that's what makes it so good. A lot of writers try to start their book with a mystery, and they keep very vague about, like, who the characters are and what exactly is happening. And that fails to hook the reader. You want to give the reader as much information as possible, but just keep them wondering about one or two things, like the why of why someone would be trailing someone on a dark street. I also think this strategy is great because the reader knows that this guy is being followed, but the character doesn't know. And so we want to keep reading to find out what this character does when he discovers he's being followed. Now, this next strategy sounds like a boring one, but I'm going to teach you how to make it exciting. It is number 8, establish the status quo. So there's so much writing advice out there that talks about like, start right away, start with the inciting incident, like right in the very first 3 words. And you know, that's not bad. Obviously you can do that well, but there are more options out there, and this is one of them. For this example, we're looking at Susanna Clark's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So
yeah, I have that
this
book.
Talks about a society of magicians that gets together. They get together on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and they read papers about magic to each other. So why does the status quo work here? Well, for starters, the status quo is inherently interesting, right? I mean, a society of magicians? You're intrigued already, even though this is the normal everyday world of the book. But the second reason why this works is that this is a very long book, like almost 900 pages.
Yeah, it's fucking huge.
Yeah, you can start your story
Actually,
a little bit
no,
slower if
the
you have 900 pages to work with.
biggest
The
book I
shorter
have
the
is
work
Inheritance.
The faster you have to start. Now, I will have to say that 3 paragraphs later, there is a distinguished visitor that crashes this society of magicians, and that's the actual inciting incident. But yeah, if you
I was mid-writing, it's an interesting status quo when he answered the question.
you want to spend the first 3 paragraphs of your novel just establishing what regularly goes on in this world, that is okay. This next way to write the first paragraph of your book doesn't get talked about enough. It is number 9. Begin with a singular sentence. So part of the process of writing a first paragraph is to make sure the reader is transitioned from their life into the world, into the universe of the novel.
Never-ending
now,
story.
one way to do that is simply to focus on a singular sense. Sight, sound, touch, taste, any of those. You focus on it for a full paragraph and the reader is immersed into that world. Now, I will say that it is best if it is connected to the plot in some way, because that way you're not only immersing the reader in the world of the book, but you're also starting a storyline. But, you know, if you can't do that, sometimes a sense alone can work. Check out Suite Française by Irene Nemirovsky. This is a paragraph that starts with temperature, but focuses mainly on sound, the sound of air raid sirens going off, the hum of the sirens, the wailing of the sirens, and what happens to people when they hear these sirens go off. It's great because
A perfect sound to use would be like the roaring of flames. Because it's Dragon's Breath that's skewing Torg out of the 100-Year Quest. Dragon's Breath that's so powerful he ran through the entire dungeon and it carried behind him.
get danger right from the get-go. It's great because we can literally hear the sirens with these characters, and it's great because we're worried for these people. What's going to happen to them? And the 10th and final first paragraph strategy is begin with a voice. Here is a secret. Readers will forgive almost all the mistakes in your book as long as you make them enchanted and entranced with a character's voice. Let's look at Philip Meyer's The Sun, which is one of the best Western novels I've ever read in my life. Listen to the sound of this old guy speaking. It was prophesied I would live to see 100, and having achieved that age, I see no reason to doubt it. I love the fact that in this whole paragraph, he doesn't use contractions. I love the fact that he's using this old-timey language like prophesied and scalped and fouling. And I really like his very matter-of-fact tone. You can really picture who this guy is just by listening to the way he speaks. And sometimes that's enough. If you can hook a reader on the personality of a character who's talking, you honestly don't need much more to get them involved in the world of your novel and to make them want to read the whole thing. Hey, I hope that helps you write the first paragraph of your novel. And just remember, if you need more